911, what is the address of your emergency?
78. Help!
Aliens about 1 operator 6180. What's the address of your emergency? 1797 Sumter Street. We're being robbed at gunpoint.
No. They're following me to my house. The guns are already out. She's shooting. Okay.
Hello and welcome to Stop the Threat. My name is James Towle. On today's episode, we take you to the peach state of Georgia for an episode we are calling Carjacking Gone Wrong. Thank you for joining us again this week. Panel, we're going to review a carjacking. Now, we've done many of these in the past. This one's a little different because the elements are a little different. A little different set of circumstances. I think we can learn from every one of them. This one, I think, especially. But I did a little research, and I think it would come as no surprise that 74% of the carjackings are done with some type of weapon. Maybe the surprise may come in the fact that, according to the Department of Justice, 50,000 carjackings are done per year. When I first read that, I don't know, I thought the number would be higher. And then when I was speaking to LT about that, you brought out a real good reason.
To me, that's a tragedy. That's 50,000 plus victims whose lives are totally changed. They'll never look at driving down the street the same for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. It is a violent crime. And I guess for that reason, we're not giving it enough attention. Now, we were speaking that we thought that carjackings were higher years ago, and then they kind of went away, and now they're back again, right?
Well, I guess it has to do with the cyclical nature of crime. Everything, tides, everything runs in cycles, and I'm guessing that particular crime is on the uptick.
Well, maybe part of that reason is the fact that when I continued doing the research, I came across some very interesting information, which all of us obviously just missing here, is that with the new cars, the alarm system has become very sophisticated. And the bad guys in this case are not sophisticated. So it's easier for them to, and they list dozens of places here, every place you could possibly go, easier for them to find a way for a carjacking. Maybe the most popular would be?
Well, one is lately they're putting things that look like a parking ticket on the car, wait till the victim, potential victim, gets out to look at it, and now they make their move.
Right.
Or they bump with their car, the car of the victim, right. And then again, the potential crime victim gets out, and right. Somebody else slips in, or the person who, the accomplice in the car that caused the accident. Yeah,
I was kind of surprised to see that it was still very popular to have a carjacking at stop signs and stoplights. I think the point here might be it's still going on. Maybe that's the point we need to just say, that carjacking is still taking place. I was pretty surprised at some of the ways they were doing a Good Samaritan. I didn't think of that one, I guess. If I have car trouble, and I can't recall a time that I've had lately, but if I've had car trouble and someone pulls over, you're almost grateful to see somebody. Right. Gee, somebody's going to stop and give me a hand. And then here it turns out that he's actually going to rob you, steal your car, and worse. And there you go. When we come back, I'm going to show you part one of the carjacking, and we'll have a lot more to talk about. Don't go away. Hello and welcome back. We're talking off camera about some things that we probably should have mentioned in segment one and didn't, but you mentioned something I thought was interesting.
Well, recently along the Gulf Coast in the Mobile, Alabama area, they've had a rash of police impersonators attempting to either rob or abduct people. So that's something else to be aware of.
And that would lead back to what you were saying.
Well, accidentally, actually, there's been a rash of carjackings where the thief doesn't notice there's a child in the back. So I can't imagine what it must feel like to see a car driving off with your 3-year-old in the back seat.
Shocking.
Oh,
yeah, shocking.
Can't imagine.
Let's watch part one. We'll come back.
All right, you'll grab one from here, your choice. I'll just sit here.
That one.
All right, go get it. I'll meet up with you later.
Get out of the car! Hey! Hey! Stop going through my purse! Hey! Hey! Somebody! Somebody! This kid stole my purse! Oh, hell no! Get out! Stop the car! Stop the car!
Okay, I told you the elements were different. And I also, you know that all these reenactments are real. So we're not making this up. This really did take place. I don't think anybody's going to drive around the parking lot looking for people sitting in their car. But I think people just try to get a parking space as close to the front door to the place as they can. And they get out and do what they're supposed to do. I think that situational awareness thing may kick in, though, when you leave the vehicle. Or before you leave. What do you think?
Well, all I can think of is this worth dying for? Because when you jump on the hood of a car and use the Fast and Furious school of tactics to accomplish something, that makes me go, whoa, and I can't see hardly beyond it.
Right.
The lady has become a victim in a way many people have. Open purse, loosely in control of it, and she set herself out without knowing. But people don't know that. They really don't know that. The bad guy here is the one that did it. But definitely, anytime you're making a decision what you're going to do, think about it first. Is this worth dying for?
What would you have done differently?
Well, I would not have sat in the vehicle rummaging around in my purse. I mean, of course, I've had the benefit of a lot of training, and I've done a million crime reports. So I know anytime, whether you're male or female, because men are crime victims all the time, and but particularly females, do not sit in your car in a parking lot, in a public parking lot, for any reason whatsoever.
Okay, and I'm guilty of that. I will, in fact, wait in the vehicle myself. Maybe I've got the car running and the air conditioning on, and I'm sitting there waiting for my wife to come out with the groceries. So I'm a victim of that. I mean, I could be a victim.
I would suspect that you're also actively scanning the area.
Well, I am.
Every once in a while.
Sure.
One thing I'd like to point out is if you're carrying concealed, carry concealed.
Yeah.
You want to make sure your clothing or whatever hides that weapon, because if you ever have to use your weapon, be the fact that they don't know it's there, be a part of your tactic of surprise. And you also may become a victim too, because retention of a weapon becomes an issue. So I happen to notice, if you play it back, it was pretty obvious he was carrying the firearm. Find clothes that better hide that weapon. I'm a big believer in the Second Amendment, but also I'm a big believer in the tactic of keeping it concealed. Yeah,
there's a very strong argument, and I'm not being argumentative, but there is a very strong argument now going on in many states that if they see the weapon, then that's a deterrent in itself. So we come back, I'm going to show you part 2, and we'll probably have more to tell you. Don't go away. Welcome back, viewers. Dan and I were just talking off camera because we left with that great controversy over concealed and open, and I'm happy with either one of them, frankly. But there is an argument, and Dan's viewpoint on that would be?
As a trainer with a great deal of experience in this area, if I was to take a stand, I understand those that think that carrying a weapon in the open is a deterrent. To some, it may be. But if someone was to ask me what they should do, I would say tactically, I would recommend that you keep it concealed. That's what for many reasons, because retention of that weapon becomes an issue when you're carrying it in the open. And do you train in number one, how and when to use that weapon and how to retain it? And most people do not.
That's a good point. And we're going to save that for another show because we really need to conclude what's going to take place here. So just as a update here, lady drives into the parking lot. We've all done it. We look for a place that's close to the front door, and she just pops out of her vehicle, not paying attention. I think I was good with everything right up to the point popping out of the vehicle and not knowing what's going on. Let's watch part 2, and we'll come back.
Stop going to my park! Ah! Oh, hell no! Get out of the car! Get out of my car!
Get off the car, you crazy lady.
Car! Help! He's stealing my car! Out of the car! Stop! 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 Stop the car! Stop! Stop! Stop the car! Ah!
You okay?
Yeah,
Call 911.
okay. Yeah.
Well, I don't even know where to begin here. I mean, actually, there are so many things here that were wrong and dangerous. Where do you want to start? You want to go with something?
Well, I'll just list some of the potential crimes that our hero could have been charged with. Firing into an occupied vehicle, attempted murder, third-degree assault, and for what? He doesn't know that the guy behind the wheel wasn't a repo man.
Good point.
Right, he doesn't know that actually, I'm trying to remember what the woman verbalized, but I'm not sure he really knows. If he didn't hear, I don't think he heard her say, somebody's stealing my car, because she said that initially before she jumped on the hood. And after that, I think the only thing she said was, stop, get out of my car, stop, stop, stop. It could have been her husband, for all we know. Somebody with actual
divorce
title.
situation, maybe, and that leads back to the problem that would happen there. Now, frankly, we didn't have a camera on the real event, so we're kind of guessing a little bit about how that went because we can only go upon, what was written. But there's certainly every indication that this was all wrong. LT.
He could have verbalized a lot better to the woman, get off the car, to the man, stop or I'm going to shoot. I have a tendency to be a little more forgiving of him and his actions because the lady was in danger. I mean, and the man was driving off, and that creates a definite danger. You could argue whether it was her jumping on the car created danger or the guy continuing to drive after he did so, but he was between a rock and a hard place. Hats off to him for hitting the suspect and not her.
Boy, that's the part that bothers me right there. I mean, I don't know what you thought at home, folks, but as far as I was concerned, I'm imagining myself as the shooter, and the car is going away with someone on the hood, and I'm trying to get a shot on the driver. We don't even know who the driver is.
I think that was the main decision of the shooter that I would question. Is he really remembering what's going to happen to his lead if it misses the bad guy, the guy he's assuming is a bad guy? Because that woman is right there in his line of fire. In fact, she screamed when he shot, and for a second, we thought maybe she had been shot. It wasn't obvious she hadn't.
Yeah, right. It wasn't obvious, no. And she well could have been. But I'm going to go back to Dan's point. We're talking about a car. I mean, okay, this is a very aggressive woman who doesn't want her car stolen. But, you know, at home, this is not what we are going to advise you to do, no matter what your car is. I mean, that's why we have law enforcement. And, you know, get 911 will do the job. And I don't know if I want to risk jumping on the car.
And if you're a prudent person, you have insurance on your vehicle, full coverage. So if it's gone, just file your insurance claim. It's not worth dying over.
Right. Yeah, well, I got to admit, I've got a couple of cars that I would hate to lose because once it does leave the driveway, you may never see the car again. I'm willing to concede that point, and I'll listen to yours on Facebook or any other social media because I know we all have our favorite vehicles, but I still think it's a good point.
Yeah, additionally, there's some other things to consider. That round, small caliber going through a window is not going to go where you think it is. It's going to be deflected
Still have to
a
go
bit.
through that window.
And then break up that tunnel vision. When you did take a shot, look for others because he's probably not alone. And you got tunnel vision, break up that tunnel vision, look around for other suspects and threats.
Someone's going to send me an email and say, isn't the reason why we use a gun based upon the fact that if someone's life is in danger, that we should feel like we can do that? We come back, we'll look more at that question. Don't go away. Thanks for coming back, folks. Just before we left, though, we were talking about the circumstances under which you would be legally correct as well as morally correct to draw your weapon and enter into an incident. And those reasons would be that someone's life is in danger or your own. Now, having said that, I'm going to go to LT because he made a good remark.
Well, you know, there's something called the greater danger rule. When there's other people that are close besides the suspect and a person's endangered, we go to the greater danger rule. Because is there a greater danger me firing my weapon, or is there a greater danger me not firing my weapon? And then you make the decision based on that. In this case, you had a busy mall behind you as a backstop. You had the female as a backstop. I think the greater danger in this case was my bullet hitting somebody I didn't want to hit than it would her rolling off the car and being killed.
Sure. Okay, well, let's put ourselves in the boots of the shooter. What's he thinking?
I don't even think he knows what he's thinking.
Okay, that's a good point.
He's just reacting to a stimulus, and where he should be thinking.
Okay.
Because it would be hard to argue that he was defending a third party when that same third party was in the straight line of his fire.
To say the least.
To say the least,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that brings us to one point that I do want to throw in, that because you are armed, because you see something taking place that's illegal, does not give you the right to become law enforcement and start dealing out justice at the point of a gun. Am I right or wrong here?
Well, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
In most situations, I think, and this is where you get into the whole issue of how decisions are made. And law enforcement, you know, we're trained to remove emotion from the decision. Mm-hmm. We have to be. Good citizens out there don't have that training.
Right.
So, for instance, her decision, clearly based on emotion.
Right.
The shooters, clearly based on emotion. The only people who are in control of their emotions, at least initially, are the bad guys.
Yeah, right. They knew the plan.
They're prepared. They know what they're going to do. They had a plan. They had a backup system. They had a good communication.
I think the emotion part is really well said. Go ahead, Elder.
There's a feeling when you put a firearm on that there's an action imperative when something goes wrong. But there's a real strong, I feel for all the people that are watching, because I I once had a certain authority when I wore the badge, and when I retired, I realized that authority is no longer there. And so I had to take a step back and realize there's no imperative for me to act. I can be a witness.
And a good
I
witness.
can call, and I can remember and stay and report. And I've just done 3 things that most people in the world will not do.
And the fourth thing is you get to go home.
There you go.
You get to go home. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Police officers have a legal duty to act. The good citizens do not, under
That's well
law.
said too. And they have not had any training in controlling their emotions, and most of these things are based upon emotions. And it happens to all of us. The adrenaline gets running. You want to do something. Okay, the truth of the matter is that shooter wanted to help. He saw what was taking place, and he felt like in a reason, I need to get involved here. But that was an emotional reason, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Right.
If you're an armed citizen, you have to be not only aware, but exercise good judgment.
Let me just give you the follow-up on this before we get too far, and I'm going to run out of time. It's pretty simple. The bad guy was arrested and charged with aggravated assault and theft. The second bad guy was never found, and I guess that's pretty common. I appreciate you tuning in this week. Get a hold of me on Facebook, all the social medias. There's a lot to talk about, and I'm happy to do it with you. Be safe, be trained, be alert. See you next week.